And I got a t-shirt too.
What?
Bonus.
I haven't even gotten a t-shirt and I'm the host.
Oh my gosh.
They're going to give you my job. What
No.
the
I carry on like I carry my pack, even if I don't come back.
We are here today with Deanna Callahan from Gateway Proven Strategies, also known as GPS. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mindy. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's a pleasure to finally meet you in person.
You too. I hear you're pretty badass.
You know, you'd be really surprised by my background. I've gotten into a lot of trouble in my life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is going to be the best interview ever.
Like, I know I probably don't appear to be at all what you will discover, but...
Well, looking at your LinkedIn, you're very professional. None of the craziness. So.
That's what I'm going for. Yeah.
But I want to tap into the craziness, not the LinkedIn.
Yeah. You know, I mean, how deep do you want to go? Like, I've gotten into some trouble. I've spent some time in jail even.
Oh my gosh. That is one thing I have never, it's on my bucket list, but I've not been arrested yet.
You know, it was actually not so bad. Like, the women in the jail were really sweet. They were like, they took me under their wing. We made dominoes out of like the milk cartons. We just like, you know, cut them up and.
Okay, so wait, first. So you've been to jail, not prison.
No, not prison.
Is it like Orange is the New Black? Like they.
It kind of is, yeah, yeah.
That kind of glorifies jail. I want to go
does.
because of that.
You know, it was an interesting experience. It's not like something I'd want to do again or recommend.
So can we talk about why you went to jail?
Cannabis. I grew up in Texas, and cannabis is very illegal in Texas, as you probably know. But you know, I really started getting attracted to the horticultural aspect. I was kind of growing a little bit, very illegally.
Oh, growing a little bit, like in your own home.
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic.
Right. Not growing as a person or, you know.
Right.
I mean, I guess I was probably not in the right direction.
I feel like the growing, though, for that is like nurturing a child even more so. Because I know there are a lot of things. Like, you can't mix plants. You can't make moms be with certain dads and other mother plants. Like,
yeah.
I'm no professional. But you clearly are. So tell me more.
Well, yeah. Like, if you want, I mean, like, you obviously have to just grow, like, female plants. You can't bring the males in. Otherwise, you get a bunch of seeds. You don't get good quality. But I guess, not to dive too deep in it, but I was cultivating a little bit. I was very fascinated with horticulture and botany and stuff. And obviously, I was partaking. This is when I was like 15 years old, though. I was like way too young to even start experimenting, but I was already like living on my own by that time. I left my house very early when I was younger. So yeah, anyways, I got pulled over one day. I think I like ran a stop sign or something. And I'm sure my car probably smelled like weed because I was just smoking.
The cloud of smoke?
Yeah.
The clam bake?
You know, like I rolled down the window and the officer's like, step out of the car. Like, shit.
It wasn't me. It was not me.
There's really no way out of that situation. And he asked for my license and registration. So I don't know why, but my license was like in my wallet. I handed him my whole wallet and I forgot that I had this little tiny pinner joint that I had rolled up like months ago and stuck in the change part of my wallet. And he was like, I don't know why, but he was like, I was like, why is he smelling my wallet? And he starts like going through it and he opens up the change purse and it was like he found gold. He was like, aha. And I was like, fuck. So somehow I end up going to jail and he charges me for over an ounce of cannabis with like intent to distribute. So it was
for
like,
one joint?
Yeah, it was
I
like,
mean, was it a blunt? Because
no, it was like a pinner. He was just, I don't know. It was kind of a weird situation, very questionable practice. He didn't call any backup, but he towed my car. He took me to jail. I'm crying like a little, I'm crying. By this time, you know, I had just turned 18. It was like my 18th birthday was like a week before. And it was like, So we go to jail, and I actually start to get the sense that this officer is a little drunk because he's swerving, and I'm crying profusely, and he's like, "Shut the fuck up!" And I'm like,
Oh my goodness.
it was the worst experience. When he pulled into the police station, he actually like knocked off the mirror of another cop car, and he's like, "You didn't see shit," and I was like, I didn't see anything.
This is like out of a movie.
I know, it was insane. So I go into the holding cell, they take my prints, I sit there for 24 hours, then I finally go to like the actual jail. I am scared shitless. It's cold as fuck there. I'm wearing like a little skirt and a tank top, no blankets. I'm
Looking cute, but cold as hell.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, and it don't look so cute when they take away your wedge heels and give you like little paper shoes.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was a crazy experience, but the women there were really kind, and it wasn't like nobody was like trying to mess me up or like come on to me in any strange way, and so yeah, I just kind of powered through it. The drug cart came around, and I popped a couple Benadryls, probably slept through most of it.
Right.
I mean, I'm small, and like Benadryl will knock me out, so And before I knew it, I was able to get out, and I just did like probation. I did all these routine voluntary drug tests, and I did community service, and it was really cool because that actually helped direct my career, because coming out of that, I started doing community service at the Botanical Research Institute of Texas, and it really drove my interest further in horticulture, and really I got to work alongside doctors and researchers, and this really cool environment. So it turned out to be a good thing all around. In the end, the case is dismissed, and Derek may be able to find it on my record still with his crazy databases, but yeah. But it also planted the seed that has grown into the career I've built in cannabis, because beyond that, I was like, how, there's so much here with this plant. I mean, Mindy, it's crazy. Like, this plant is very interesting. Hemp is actually an accumulator plant. So if you plant it in soil that's contaminated, it'll absorb the toxins from the soil and clean it. They actually used it in Chernobyl after that crisis, the big like radiation spill, to clean up the soil to make the land inhabitable for people again. Like, this plant can literally clean the planet. It can replace plastics. It can replace, petroleum-based textiles. I mean, even Ford's first vehicle, you probably heard this, was built on, it was actually built out of hemp, and it ran on hemp fuel. So it's incredible what this plant can do. And then on the medicinal side, I'm a total science nerd. On the medicinal side, the cannabinoids, the terpenes, the way they interact with the body, the things that they can do for people, it's fascinating. And when my dad got cancer many years later, I'm already built my career in cannabis. I'd been running an manufacturing distribution facility, one of the top in the state of California, as chief production officer. We're producing. We actually had this amazing program called the Shelter from the Storm Project, where we supplied free medicine to cancer patients, and so like, it was amazing. We had this opportunity to actually consult with patients and their doctors to identify, obviously we're not doctors, but we did our best and did all this research to identify, what's working for them. We collected all this data, and we would supply them with different tinctures and products that would just the idea was at least help ease the suffering.
Right.
But in some cases, and I hate to say this because you cannot make claims in cannabis, but in some cases we saw patients go into remission, and they were using no chemo, just like full, holistic health therapies in cannabis. And it was just incredible to hear the stories and work with those patients. And it was crazy when a couple years later, my dad came down, like my dad ended up with this sudden case of cancer, so aggressive. It was like we found out 3 months later he's gone. That was terrible. But it was amazing that I had all that experience working with those patients. that I was able to deal with it a lot better. And then on top of that, I knew what to recommend for him. And we were able to supply through that same company, you know, they're still very close to my heart. We were able to supply my dad with, you know, cannabis medicine to help get through a lot of that because, you know, it's an intense time. But all in all, it's been an amazing journey, and it all kind of started with going to jail.
Going to jail for a joint. And look at you, an entrepreneur. And that's what I was going to ask, because your dad, so how many years ago was he diagnosed with cancer?
So it was actually very recent. So he passed away like 2 years ago. He was diagnosed like literally like 3 months, and then boom. My dad's a vet. He also, you know, he's this very like, he's this kind of outdoorsy guy. Like he would have like a gash across his arm or leg, just like bleeding out. And he'd just be like, oh, it's just a scratch. Don't worry.
It's fine.
He was that kind of guy. He
I
never
love that.
wanted to go to the hospital. He'd always like, you know, first aid. Like he's always in combat mode or something. Like, don't worry, we got this. But it's so funny because there's a double standard. If it came to me, he'd just be like, oh my God, like we gotta go to the hospital. We need to take care of this.
Right.
Yeah, but for himself, he was just like, no, I'll be fine. And so he had he had this pain in his rib for a while, and he just kept saying, oh no, I think I just pulled a muscle, I'm fine. And I'm like, I don't know, Dad. One day I kind of like asked him to show me, and there's a lump there, and I'm like, what the fuck? Dad, like,
Right.
come on, like, we're going to the hospital. He's like, no, I don't need to go to the hospital. I drug his ass to the emergency room. They looked it up, and they're like, we're sorry, but, you know, this looks like textbook cancer. And, oh my God, I'll never forget that. I hate to get all sad, but, like, just leaving the hospital, like, this man, he's, like, the strongest, like, this big, burly man, super strong, you know, just to see, like, fear, you know, like, in his eyes. And we're sitting in the car, I'm driving, we're about to pull out of the hospital, and I just reach my hand out, and he grabs my hand, and he just, like, squeezes it, and he's like, we don't say anything. We just hold hands there for a second, and it's like, I don't know what we're going to do. And, you know, I didn't want him to do chemo because I don't believe in chemo. Like, you're injecting your body with toxins.
As a cancer survivor, I'll be the first to say that chemo is more toxic to your body than the cancer itself.
I didn't know. Wow. That's...
Your heart was in the right place with that one. You never want to see somebody that you love struggle with that portion, especially. And with your knowledge of cannabis and how much that could help him. I just, so you're driving home. You're holding hands.
Oh, well, yeah. So I didn't want him to go through chemo exactly for those reasons, because I saw like what it did to the patients in the program, and the ones who didn't do it, they seemed so much better off. But at the end of the day, you know, it was really going to be his call, and he wanted to do it. But one of the things that was really troubling is after that visit to the emergency room, we called the VA, and we're like, you know, I come from I grew up very, like, way below the poverty line, and we didn't have much growing up, and we struggled a lot. And my dad, you know, he's a vet, so there's some benefits through the VA, but they are just so bogged down, right?
Right.
So we call, and it takes us a month to get in to see a specialist to even start any type of treatment, right? And by the time, you know, the VA finally, you know, approved that, and we were able to get that done, it had spread so much, and they were like, we have to do chemo. My dad was like, I'm gonna fight this. We're gonna win. Like, we're gonna do chemo. And I'm like, Dad, I don't think chemo's the right path. And he's like, we're gonna do it. It's okay. Don't worry. We're gonna fight this. And he just kept telling me, like, don't worry. But I knew we were both very worried. So yeah, it was just. It was tough because I don't live in Texas. I live in California, and so I was flying out like every week and then flying back for work. At the time, I was running my own consulting firm. I had moved on from the running the operation, the manufacturing distribution operation in Cali, and I had started my own consulting group. I was so blessed that I had done really well the year before, and that year I had made more money than I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'd built an amazing team. We were doing incredible work. We were really helping companies build, sustainable businesses in the space, win licenses, build out their operations, maintain compliance. So I was in a really good place, and I'm so lucky I was, because I was able to fly out every week, take care of his bills, make sure he was comfortable. But as soon as he started chemo, it was like within a couple weeks, he was like, I could see him wasting away. I could see his appetite fading. I remember the last meal I got him to actually eat was Jack in the Box. It was like, that was like his favorite thing. And like I said, I grew up pretty poor. So like Jack in the Box was like fine dining for me.
Nice.
It was like when something really special happened, it was like, we're going to Jack in the Box. I'm like, yes,
Instead of
2
Sizzler.
tacos. Yeah. So I had bought him like his favorite meal at Jack in the Box, and I could barely get him to eat like a couple tacos. This man like could put away like a whole like turkey Thanksgiving dinner. Like this guy is like huge. And he just started to, he used to always give me these huge bear hugs, and like it was like too much. I'd be like, okay, I love you too. And he's like, give me these big bear hugs every time I'd come. He'd pick me up and like carry me around, and every time I'd come, every week, he'd get weaker and weaker to where, I could start to feel his bones a lot, and then he couldn't pick me up, and then it got so bad that the cancer spread into his bones, and so it started eating his bones, and so there was a point where my aunt was taking care of him. It was the week that I wasn't there. And he had got up to go to the restroom or something, and then he just collapsed. And he was rushed to the emergency room. The cancer had spread to his spine, to his spinal cord. He became paralyzed, like from the waist down, and, was in a wheelchair. Luckily, they went into emergency surgery. They removed the tumor. He regained some sensation, but now he was like stuck in a wheelchair. This man like loves the outdoors, loves being active, and now he's in a wheelchair. He's wasting away. Next, it spread to like his right behind his eyes, so his eye starts popping up, looking like kind of like a fish, and it was like I couldn't recognize him anymore. And it was just the most. I can't believe I dove so deep into this, but it was the hardest thing in the world to see someone you care about, someone you love so much, just waste away. And it's a hard time, because he's like, I don't want you to see me like this. And I'm like, I'm not going to leave your side.
Right.
But, I want to remember him before that. But, it took so long for me to get that image out of my head, to see that at the end, And I still like, when someone you're close to passes like that, you always beat yourself up. You're like, I could have done more. What if I was there every day? What if I changed his diet? What if I fed him better? What if we, tried to get into some experimental treatment program, or, and then at the very, very end, I was there for a long stretch, and then I had this event to execute, because like I also did like event planning on the side and stuff. And, you got to diversify. You know what I mean?
Right.
You got to diversify. We know Kevin knows this. He's got like 4 businesses over here. So at the very end, it was like that week, I had to go to execute this event that we had been planning for like 6 months. I go to execute the event, and right after that, I had planned to go to a friend's house for Thanksgiving, and then to head back to my dad's. So we execute the event, and my aunt calls me like as we're almost during the event, as it's starting to wind down, and she's like, things are looking really bad. We don't think he's going to make it through the night. And I'm just, I don't even know, like, you don't even know what to do at that point. And, the next day, I call early in the morning. She's like, he's still hanging on. And so, I carry out the plans. I go to the friends on Thanksgiving feeling guilty as fuck. I'm like, I should just fly to Texas right now. And she's like, I don't think you want to see this. And so I still regret not just going, because Thanksgiving Day is the day he passed. Ugh. And, I get the call, and it's just the most traumatizing thing I've ever experienced. Even though I've seen a lot of really Like I've seen a lot of shit in my life, and but this it's someone so close to heart. And when that happened, it was just like, I needed a moment. So I just went upstairs, and it's like, you can't cry. You're just like, you're stuck. It's like numbness. Like it's like this weird plane of existence, grief. And so I changed everything around. I flew out took a flight like a few hours later, like rushed to the airport, caught the next flight out, went out to be with the family and stuff, and did the whole funeral thing. And it was sad, because he always envisioned this funeral where, like, the military would come out and lay the flag over the coffin, but we couldn't get any of that to happen. The VA was, again, so bogged down, so backed up. And I know he wasn't like a major or anything. He was just a sergeant, but in the Army. But at least we were there, and it was a really beautiful ceremony. It took a long time to and it's still like, grief definitely comes in waves. So there's still moments where it's like powerful. But I try to find peace in, again, I'm kind of a science nerd, so I'm really into like quantum physics. So I have this belief in like, in superposition, so everything exists everywhere at the same time, all at once, until an observer looks at it. And so I imagine that my dad exists in all these other places, and all these other times, and just because I'm not tuned into it doesn't mean he's not there. And I also like to think that everything in the universe is a part of us. And maybe this is because I've done shrooms before. And when you're on shrooms, it's like, oh my God, I finally get it.
It all makes
Everything
sense.
is one. Yeah, it all makes sense. I am one with the sand and this chair. We are the same. So I do feel like, we are trillions of cells that have decided to work together to function as a body, as a being. And it's our consciousness that kind of ties that all together and makes us, function as a human, as a being. But our consciousness is beyond that. And even when we transcend the physical, it's, we're still, that existence, I believe, still is here. That consciousness is still here, but it transcends the confines of our mind and what we understand to be reality, right? So even though my dad may not be associated with his body or his memories, I know that his essence, his spirit, his consciousness still exists as a part of the greater whole. And so I try to find peace in that. But gosh damn it, sometimes I just want to hear him laugh.
Right.
Or, I just hear him, like, he is such a jokester. So I just kind of miss, you just miss that. You miss that. And the memories almost make you angry for a while. Then they make you sad. It's just, but I think every adversity that we face in our lives builds us, right? It's like either we overcome and we're stronger for it, or we throw up our hands and we just, go into pity mode, like, oh, woe is me,
Right.
And
but you're not
that
like
gonna
that,
get you?
right? You're not like that. I'm not like that.
I'm totally like that. Can't you tell?
So I wonder,
I'm
so your dad went ahead with the chemo. I'm just trying to tie this in. So how much did that have you advocate for cannabis and what you believe is the better route to take? Because like I said, like you said, the chemo and the treatments and the radiation is so much harder on your body. And when I just went through my cancer journey, I was so afraid of those things. And I don't have the knowledge that you have of cannabis and the amazing benefits to that and going naturally. So did your dad's illness and him doing the chemo kind of provoke you to be more of an advocate for cannabis?
I mean, I feel like I would like to say the answer is yes, and I guess it kind of is, but I don't think it had that direct effect. Like I was such an advocate for it already. I just see that it has so far to go, right? Most of the research that's been done is in Israel, and for whatever reason, I'm sure there are some reasons, the rest of the world doesn't like, it's like the US isn't going to be like, oh, Israel proved it, so yeah.
Right.
We're like, no, we need to prove it ourselves and, all this other stuff. And it's really got a long way to go because it's almost like mapping the human genome. Our endocannabinoid system, doctors didn't even learn about this for a long time, but it is a system just like the endocrine system, the circulatory system. It's a system of the body. And we have a natural version of THC that always acts on it called anandamide. That's like our own body's natural version of THC. And when THC interacts, and CBD and other cannabinoids, it has certain effects on the endocannabinoid system that regulate a bunch of different parts of our body. So, the endocannabinoid system is almost like a system that maintains homeostasis, right, in the body, same state. So it controls so many different aspects, and we really have no idea which combinations of cannabinoids, which ratios, and how terpenes play into it to really affect us. And at that, everyone's endocannabinoid system differs. I believe that in the future, we'll probably find that endocannabinoid systems are like blood types. There's probably going to be type 1, type 2, type 2A.
I need to know how to trigger mine. I need to know how to make mine start acting right.
Right. You got to find like the right mix for you, even if we're looking at just the raw flower and we're just trying to find the right strain, every time that cultivar is grown in a different environment, a different way, it's going to produce different levels of those phytochemical components, right? So it's really hard to dial in a science on a plant. That's why pharmaceuticals exist. And people in the industry are very scared of pharmaceutical companies. So they're like, nah, the man's trying to come in and take our crops. And, and it is kind of true. But at the same time, for it to advance as a medicine, we do need standardization. We need testing. We need clinical trials. And I think there's a lot of good it can do in the world. But cannabis, I see the future of it is integrating both cannabis as a medicine, cannabinoids, and cannabis as a fiber, hemp, right, into traditional industry segments. It's like cannabis really isn't an industry. It's a plant that can produce a bunch of different products. It's a raw material. And all the industries already exist. Fashion industry can use it, construction industry can use it, pharmaceutical industry can use it. It's just about integrating it into those segments. And we're up against like hundreds of years of prohibition and all this stigma, and it's a lot to overcome. We have to get governments to provide supportive policies. We have to get enterprises to adopt it into their supply chain so that you can buy it from the big brands you already know. We need the investors to put the dollars in to build the infrastructure, and we need the innovators to build that infrastructure. But none of that's going to happen until the individual, the consumer, at the core, at the center of that wheel. It's not going to happen until they drive it, right? So if you're able to buy hemp products and you're not buying them, but you advocate for cannabis, then that's me, honestly. Like, I'm kind of part of the problem. The only hemp products I buy are really like hemp hearts. And, I was just beating myself up yesterday. I was like, I'm the problem, right? Like, if
you're the problem and the solution.
I'm the solution. I love that. Yes. But that's the thing. Like, actually, I was lucky enough to meet with one of my friends. She runs International Hemp Genetics, and it's like they provide genetics for hemp fiber crops. And this dress is made of hemp. This is made of hemp textile, 100% hemp. And so I figured, like, wow, like this is actually really soft and comfortable and flattering.
Right.
And, I've been looking into other groups that are, there's this one group in Romania, I think it's called like Ionut or something. They make this incredible, like, Romanian hemp linen that's like light as air and soft as the finest linen, and it's made of hemp. Like, you think hemp and you're probably like scratchy, itchy. Yeah. But no, it's come so far, and there's so much that can be done with it.
It's because we bought those hemp bracelets in the 90s with the peace sign and the mushroom on them that were tie-dyed.
Like, yes.
I'm super cool. Yeah. I wear hemp. Yeah, it definitely has come
natural.
Along. Right. Yeah. You're the coolest science nerd I've ever met in my life. I love science, but I'm not nearly the science nerd that you are.
No, I was really surprised to find that Derek's like, we're on like this call, this executive call with the team, right? And he's all like, yeah, like string theory. I was like, wait, who are you? Like, yes.
He geeked out on you?
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, we're going to have some thought adventures for sure.
I have not seen the geeked out side yet.
Yeah, you know, he's a man of many shades. Have you interviewed him yet?
So, I kind of interviewed, I asked him a couple questions when he interviewed me, but no, that's going to be a new interview.
Yeah, he's a man of many shades, I'm finding.
I feel like I should almost talk to you about it after I interview him because according to his wife, you're his work wife.
Yeah,
yes.
So funny. Yeah, I probably bug him a lot. Like he's probably getting Slack messages like 20 times a day. I'm like, I just thought about this, and what if we do this? And you know, I love that. I think that's the best environment, right? Is when you're working with people who have bright minds and great ideas. And when you're in that conversation and then light bulbs are just going off in your head, like they say something and you're like, whoa, you just made so much click for me.
Right.
Like, yes.
That's why you're the bright shining light he talks about.
Aww.
All the brilliant ideas that you come up with.
So sweet. Oh my goodness.
You can pay him for that later, right?
Yeah. I'll get you back.
What is it? That was awesome.
It was like, by the way, shrooms.
I'm gonna make it really click.
Also, mushrooms. It's actually really interesting the parallels between psilocybin, like mushrooms, and cannabinoids, like cannabis, and also other psychedelics. So, you know how like the stereotype of a typical stoner is like they'll be like, yeah. So then wait, what was I talking about?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'm not gonna lie, it's happened to me a few times. But that's kind of the general stereotype. But there's also like a second kind of general body of thought about cannabis, and that's that when you smoke cannabis, you tend to have a more open-minded approach to things, right? You have like an expanded perspective. Even your what is this kind of vision? Peripheral vision?
Like,
yes.
I don't know what she's doing. We're deer. We're something.
I'm like putting my hands out on the side of my face. Yeah, your peripheral vision's even expanded. Like you see more color, more detail, stuff like that. But also your mind is open to new ideas. It's very similar on psilocybin, but even more so, right? That's why you have those moments where you're like, it all makes sense now. Because like you've got that expanded perspective. There's actually a neurological reason that happens. I was going to go into neuroscience before I decided cannabis.
Oh my gosh, not to make me feel even less smart, but...
But it's so fascinating. It's like you could imagine your brain as all these neurons that form like all these super highways and highways, and then you've got like back streets and and then dead end roads and and then you've got like those little dirt paths that no one's really treaded upon, and neurons that fire together, wire together. So the more you think about something, the more you build that super highway, right? So it's easier to think that way. That's why people tend to get stuck in neural loops, especially in traumatic situations like PTSD, where there's a trigger and it sends you through that neural loop, and it's so strong, those associations, that you can't get through it. Your brain always goes back there, right? And so people tend to have, these demeanors and these ways of thinking that are just so, they're just stuck in their ways.
Right.
Like we always say, like, oh, that old guy is stuck in his ways, right?
Right.
And the reason for that, again, is because neurons that fire together wire together. But if you can imagine each of those super highways kind of have like a tube around them, normally it's like a concrete tunnel, right? Nothing's penetrating this. That's the way you're going to think. Now, when you smoke cannabis, those, it turns from like a concrete tunnel to like a cellophane wrap, right? Now those thoughts, as they're going, from neuron to neuron, it's like an electrical impulse. Instead of going direct, sometimes they bounce out and accidentally end up connecting with a different neuron and forming a new connection that you've never had before. Sometimes it disappears into God knows where, and you're like,
Right.
What was I saying? But sometimes you're like, oh.
I'm excited to get off the super highway of overthinking.
Yes.
And I just need to smoke cannabis. That's all I need to do.
But you got to find the strain that's right for you.
Right.
Because it
Yes.
does, certain strains will, I think the biggest thing is anxiety, right? It definitely will induce anxiety in certain people with certain strains. But, I guess tying in psilocybin, when you try like psychedelics, instead of a cellophane wrap, there's nothing there. And your brain almost like resets. Those thoughts can go anywhere they want in your brain.
That's scary.
It's a little scary.
Yeah.
That's why psychedelics are a little scary. It's a journey.
Yeah.
Because you will think differently. But ultimately, it does give you that opportunity to think different about things.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I guess in closing, cannabis is...
Wrap it up?
Yeah.
You want to give you the wrap it up
I feel
box?
like I'm getting the wrap it up box over here. I am.
Okay, so I'm going to be around when you and Kevin talk about all this science shit because it's intriguing to me. I could listen to you talk all day. But like we said about the podcast, right? We're here to know what she does and who she is. So we know where you've been. Tell me a little bit about what you do now.
Yeah. So like I was saying, I had the consulting firm, right? Well, after my dad passed, suddenly I had this like quantum shift. It was like, before I was all like hustler mode, like, like we're going to rake in the clients, make it rain. Like, we're going to serve up these clients. We're going to get these dollars,
You're kind of hood too. I like it.
I am. We'll save that story for another day.
Yes.
I had a chola
That's the
phase.
After Dark Chola podcast.
That's the after hours.
I think we're going to come up with one of those because
That'd
I think
be rad.
it's super rad. Okay. So, okay, sorry.
But
back
right. The podcast, the point.
to why we're here.
Right. So I after that, it was like a quantum shift. I suddenly felt like everything in my life was uncertain. It was like, oh my God, like I'm not married. I don't live anywhere near my family. I'm like, a lone wolf
Which
a
is
Rolling
normal at your
Stone.
age, right? Because you were like 26, 25?
Yeah, I guess,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
But I felt like a tumbleweed in the wind, just going wherever the flow took me. And it just, at that moment, it just wasn't working for me anymore. I was like, I don't know if I could do this. Like, I need some sort of certainty in my life. So I started looking for like, how do I steady this? How do I like anchor myself? And I thought maybe I needed to take like a permanent role with, or like a temporary role with the company, something like that. So I told you I do the event planning stuff. So it's the next year. I'm planning the event again. And it's called the Golden Key Party. And it's like this exclusive gathering of like, founders, executives, investors from around the globe that are in cannabis. And the idea is to bring together great minds, put them all in a really cool space in a sensory immersion event where there's different activations. And at the core of each, there's like something that forces you to interact with people to break the ice. Because I'm really bad at breaking the ice with people.
I'm surprised about that. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit
Once
surprised.
you get me going,
Yeah.
there you go. Like, I'm going to keep going. But at first, it's like, those cold interactions. So that's what kind of spurred the idea. But the point is, I was planning the event, and I got introduced through a mutual connection to GPS. It was like this global consulting firm that's completely focused on connecting the dots of the global cannabis supply chain, advancing the industry, bringing this vision into fruition, getting behind it and ensuring that the infrastructure is there to bring the potential to fruition. And I was like, whoa, this is like, it just ignited this passion. It reignited the fire in my belly.
Right.
It reignited that desire for entrepreneurship, that entrepreneurial drive in me. And I was just fascinated by the concept. And I've always been like I don't know, when I was like 15, I was like, I'm going to change the world, And I always felt like I was going to do something really impactful and help people. And this felt like it just spoke to my heart, the vision of finally, because as we talked about earlier, cannabis has so far to go. Right now it's a raw material, it's a plant,
Right.
and there's so many products that can be made from it, but there's what's holding it back, right? And here it is, this group that is completely dedicated to figuring that out. And the roster of people is just amazing. Some of the brightest minds in the industry, the godfathers who built it so far, plus people coming from pharma, plus people coming from CPG companies, plus people coming from the, traditional investment world. And it's like this global think tank that is working tirelessly to solve the challenges that are holding back this industry. And it's like I said, it spoke to me. I was like, damn, you guys are doing some cool shit,
Right.
But we ended up getting introduced, and through a mutual contact. I met the founders, Bob Hope and Charles Feldman.
Wait, did you say Bob Hope?
Bob Hoban.
Oh, I was like, Bob
You're
Hope.
like, hold on, wait, he's
Woo! I thought he was dead.
But Bob Hoban, he's a pretty big name in the industry. He's like one of the godfathers for sure. And Charles Feldman is like this former DEA agent who decided to, throw down his badge and his gun and say, you know what, we're gonna give this cannabis thing a go. Like, he was tired of being on the other side of it. He was like, this actually helps people. Like, let's do this. And these guys built very successful law firms, but they were getting more and more consulting business. So they were like, yeah, what if we start a consulting group? And they're like, but how will we run it? And so luckily, I kind of came into the fold, and, they also had this other amazing woman, Cece, who was coming from the pharma side, pharma, commercial, executive, so much knowledge. Like I said, a very impressive roster that they just kind of collected together. And, we just hit it off. It was like magic. And, that's the most important thing is enjoy what you're doing, enjoy the people you work with. You never work a day in your life. And I just love them so much. And, and so we hit the ground, and we hit the ground running. We had a concept, an idea. It's evolved so much. We're testing things. We're pivoting as needed. We're persevering as needed. We're discovering what works and how, what's the best way to service, solving these big challenges that we have to overcome as an industry, or as, as a market. So I've been blessed to come into the role of their COO, building out the operations side and helping to define the strategy. And I'm so blessed. I get to work with some amazing clients. Like, we're talking like huge companies that are like, oh, what is this cannabis thing? How do we incorporate it into our supply chain? I'm like, yes. And we're working with, cannabis companies. They're doing amazing things, making hemp plastics and just, it's phenomenal. And then, bringing Derek into the fold too. We're so blessed with an incredible team of bright minds, strategic thinkers, and Derek's obviously a serial entrepreneur, very bright, has done some incredible things. It's got, like Kevin, very diversified, and then has this incredible brand, Dynamic Warriors, with this beautiful message behind it that everyone in their own way is a dynamic warrior. We've been through our own version of combat, and not to discredit the amazing sacrifices that veterans have made in actual combat, but we all face trials and tribulations, and it's not the trials that we face in our lives that define us. It is how we overcome them that defines who we are. And that's what Dynamic Warriors is all about, I think. Is that right? I'm kind of made...
Hold on. You got to pay her for that one. That was really great.
This shit's scripted?
Holy cow, yeah. We have the teleprompter back here.
I didn't know I was that cool.
You're not. You're not. It was her. She's plugging you a little bit. It's fine.
And it may start with, providing a community for people to share their stories, and providing high quality, really vetted, products that have helped people, that are, cannabinoid based medicines, which you obviously know I stand by quite a bit. But it's more than that. It's not just highly vetted, wonderful, high quality products that help people. It's that community. It's that energy. It's that the vision, and
That's amazing.
Mwah, chef's kiss.
Mwah. Okay, so who knew your journey would start with a joint?
Yeah, and a jail cell.
A joint, a jail cell, and here we are.
Yeah, COO of a global consulting firm.
Well, by far, you are the coolest science nerd I've ever met in my life. You are a walking, talking, entrepreneurial warrior. And I feel like you're the first person I met that likes to talk more than I do. So I appreciate that.
Sorry.
Don't be sorry. I love it and appreciate it. And we thank you so much for being here. Derek and Kevin will pay you for the great plug on Dynamic Warriors.
Just pay me with your undying appreciation. We're good.
We love and appreciate you to the fullest. So here is this.
Oh, how cute is that?
I know, right?
I feel like we're
Do you
getting
accept this
engaged right
rose?
now.
I know,
do.
right? In your hemp dress. Thank
This
you.
is really rad. Thank you.
It
for this
is.
gorgeous bracelet.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome, Derek. Thank you, Kevin.
And I got a T-shirt too.
What?
Bonus.
I haven't even gotten a T-shirt, and I'm the host.
Come on, guys.
They're gonna give you my job. What
No.
the?
No way.
Yay!
I wouldn't let the guests talk. It would be a terrible fit.